November 12, 1943. 28,000 feet above the cold, gray waters of the Zuiderzee, Netherlands. The world up here is a sterile beauty, a kingdom of blinding sun and razor-thin air. Frost feathers across the inside of the plexiglass canopy, a delicate lattice of ice framing an endless blue void. Inside the cockpit of his P-38J Lightning, First Lieutenant Arthur Reynolds feels the vibrations of the twin Allison engines not as a roar, but as a deep, resonant hum that travels up the stick, through his gloves, and into the bones of his arms. His breath mists in front of his face, each exhalation a fleeting cloud in the frigid metal cocoon. He's alone. That's the first and most pressing fact. 30 minutes ago, he was part of a sprawling, magnificent aerial armada, Gambit Squadron, 79th Fighter Group, escorting B-17s home from a raid on Bremen. Then, the starboard engine had sputtered. A cough, a violent shudder, and a drop in manifold pressure that sent a jolt of ice through his veins. He'd feathered the prop, worked the mixture, coaxed it back to life, but by then, the formation was gone. Just a distant, glittering cloud of aluminum specks dissolving into the eastern haze. Now he's a straggler. And in the skies over occupied Europe, a straggler is a dead man. His eyes, constantly moving, scan the horizon, the sun, the cloud deck far below. It's a practiced, methodical search pattern, not born of instinct, but of discipline. Left quadrant, 10-degree sweep, check 6 in the mirror, right quadrant, repeat. His gaze lingers on the gauges. Oil pressure, steady. Coolant temperature, good. Airspeed, 320 miles per hour. Everything is nominal now. But the silence on the radio is a constant nagging pressure. He is a single, solitary nerve ending severed from the body of the group. They called him the Professor back at the base in England. Or sometimes, the Bookworm. While other pilots like Buzz Corrigan or Axe Malone were in the officers' club, reliving dogfights with their hands and boasting of gut feelings, Art Reynolds would be in his bunk. A small lamp would cut a cone of light over a dog-eared technical manual for the P-38 or a captured performance chart for a Focke-Wulf 190. He had notebooks filled with equations, calculations for optimal climb rates at different altitudes, graphs plotting turn radius against G-load. Corrigan had slapped him on the back one night, spilling his beer. "Art," he'd laughed, "you can't fly a plane with a calculator." The others had joined in. They flew from the gut, from the fire in their belly. They were predators. Art, they implied, was a librarian in a flight suit. He didn't argue. He just kept reading. A flash. Low. At his 5 o'clock. So small it's almost imaginary. A glint of sun off metal. Instinct screams bird or ice crystal. But Reynolds doesn't trust instinct. He trusts observation. He watches the spot, his heart rate ticking up a single, controlled notch. Another glint, then another. They are not random. They are disciplined. They are climbing. And they are climbing fast. He keys his mic, a useless gesture, a ghost of a habit. Gambit 3 to Gambit lead, I have multiple bogeys, 5 o'clock low, climbing to intercept. The only reply is the crackle of static. He pushes the throttle forward, feeding the hungry Allisons. The P-38, his California Comet, surges ahead. But it's a heavy beast, a long-range escort fighter, not a nimble brawler. It's built for endurance and firepower, not for dancing. The specks grow, resolving themselves into shapes he knows as well as his own reflection. The tapered nose, the squared-off wingtips, the lean, predatory fuselage of the Messerschmitt Bf-109. 1, 2, 4, 6 of them. A full Schweinshaxe, a wolf pack. And he is the lone sheep. They ascend in a perfect practiced formation, a rising constellation of death. They haven't seen him yet. He could dive, push the P-38 to its limits and try to outrun them. That's what instinct would tell him to do. Run. But Reynolds isn't listening to instinct. He's listening to the numbers in his head. His altitude is his advantage. His speed is his shield. Diving would trade one for the other. And at the end of that dive, he would be slow, low, and trapped against the cold North Sea. He holds his course, watching them climb, his mind a silent flurry of calculations. He's no longer a pilot. He's a physicist, and the sky has just become his laboratory. The Germans adjust their course, a slight coordinated turn. They've seen him. The trap is being set. And as the 6 hunters begin to spread out, boxing him in, a strange calm settles over him. The mockery of the other pilots feels a million miles away. They saw a bookworm. He's about to show the Luftwaffe, a dragon.
The German fighters rise like sharks sensing blood in the water. They are beautiful, terrible things, their yellow noses bright against the deep azure sky. They move with an unnatural grace, a predator's economy of motion. On his radio, through the hiss of the ether, Reynolds picks up a ghost of their chatter, faint, clipped German. He can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable, confident, eager. The kill is all but assured. Their leader, you can tell, is a veteran. He positions his flight with surgical precision, too high, too level, and too climbing from below and behind. It's a classic bracket, a textbook trap designed to splinter a pilot's attention, forcing him to react to one threat while being destroyed by another. For a moment, the raw, primal fear that lives in the belly of every combat pilot makes its presence known. His hands feel slick inside his leather gloves. The air in his oxygen mask suddenly tastes thin and metallic. Your world shrinks to the size of this glass bubble, suspended over a 50-mile fall, surrounded by 6 machines whose sole purpose is to tear you out of the sky. But then, the training, his other training, takes over. The hours spent not in a cockpit, but at a wooden desk under a bare bulb. He sees the page of the Messerschmitt manual in his mind's eye, a diagram showing the BF-109G's control surfaces. He remembers the chapter on high-altitude performance, the subtle but critical weaknesses. He recalls the laughter in the mess hall. "What's the stall speed of a 109 in a 4G turn at 25,000 feet?" someone had shouted, followed by a chorus of laughs. He knew the answer. It was approximately 185 miles per hour, depending on the variant's weight and wing loading. And he knew something else they didn't. He knew that knowledge was a weapon. The 2 high pair of 109s peel off, arcing down towards him in a graceful, deadly dive. Tracers like fiery red fingers reach out across the gap. They're still out of effective range, a tactic to make him panic, to make him brake hard and bleed his precious airspeed. This is the test. The moment where instinct screams jink, dive, flee. Reynolds does none of those things. Instead, he makes a slight calculated adjustment to his rudder and ailerons, a gentle skid that causes the stream of bullets to pass harmlessly 100 feet to his port side. He doesn't waste energy on a violent turn. He conserves it. It is his most valuable currency. In the lead German plane, Hauptmann Klaus Richter frowns. This American is strange. He doesn't fly with the desperate aggression of the others. There is no panic in his movements. He is calm, precise, annoyingly efficient. Richter, an ace with 42 victories painted on his rudder, is a master of aerial combat, an artist of instinct and aggression. He feels the rhythm of a dogfight in his blood. But this P-38 pilot has no rhythm. He flies like a machine. It's unsettling. "Angehalten," Richter orders his men. "Stay tight. He is trying to lull us. Do not let him dictate the engagement." Reynolds sees them tighten their formation. They are falling for it. Their discipline, their greatest strength, is the very thing he needs to exploit. He is now being actively herded. They are subtly guiding him into a wide descending turn, pushing him lower, into thicker air where their engines have a slight performance advantage. They think he doesn't see it, but he sees it all. He sees the geometry of the trap laid out before him as clearly as a diagram in a book. His mind flashes again to his bunk. He's sketching on a notepad, 2 circles, one inside the other. The outer circle is the turn radius of a P-38 at 400 miles per hour. The inner, tighter circle is that of a BF-109. This is the fundamental problem he faces. In a classic turning fight, they can get inside his loop and shred him to pieces. It's an unwinnable game if played by their rules. So he won't play by their rules. He will invent a new game, one based on a different set of principles, not on turning, but on momentum, energy, and the precise point where an airframe, pushed beyond its designed limits, simply gives up. The 2 109s that made the first pass are now climbing back up, while the other 4 close the ring. They are patient. They have the fuel. They have the numbers. They have all the time in the world. They are 6 wolves, and he is 1 cornered stag. Reynolds takes a deep, steadying breath. The air is thick with the scent of engine oil and high-octane fuel. The low sun glints off the wings of the nearest enemy fighter. He can see the pilot's helmeted head in the cockpit. In that moment, there is no malice. There is only the problem, an equation waiting to be solved. And Lieutenant Arthur Reynolds, the bookworm, the professor, is about to begin his lecture. The classroom is 25,000 feet of open sky. The lesson is about to be written in fire and steel.
The time for passive defense is over. The moment for the solution has arrived. Reynolds gently pushes the P-38's yoke forward, dipping the nose just enough to trade a little more altitude for a surge of speed. The whine of the wind rushing past the canopy rises in pitch. The airspeed indicator needle creeps past 420, then 430 miles per hour. From the German perspective, this is the beginning of the end. The American is making a desperate run for it, a panicked dive. Their trap has worked. Klaus Richter smiles grimly. The prey is finally behaving as prey should. Nach him, He snaps over the radio. Follow him. Do not let him escape. The 6 Messerschmitts respond as one. Their formations compress, the hunters closing in on their quarry. They follow him down into the slightly thicker air, their own speed building, their engines roaring with triumphant power. They are a perfectly coordinated killing machine, each pilot anticipating the moves of the others, all focused on the singular point of the fleeing American fighter. They are a chain, linked by discipline and purpose, and Reynolds is about to pull that chain until one of its links shatters. Inside the Lightning's cockpit, there is no panic. There is only focus. Reynolds' eyes dart from the airspeed indicator to the altimeter, then to the artificial horizon. He is not just flying a plane. He is balancing an intricate, deadly equation. He needs 3 variables to align perfectly: airspeed, altitude, and g-force. He knows, from a footnote on page 87 of the P-38J technical manual, that the aircraft suffers from compressibility effects in a high-speed dive, causing the controls to stiffen. But he also knows there is a razor-thin window, a specific speed and altitude combination, where the plane can sustain a punishing high-G pull-up just before the worst of the compressibility kicks in. He also knows, from a crumpled, oil-stained translation of a captured Luftwaffe report, about the Bf-109G's dirty little secret. For all its agility, at speeds above 400 miles per hour, its hydraulically actuated flaps and slats could struggle to keep up. In a sustained high-G maneuver, its elevators would lose authority. The pilot could pull the stick back into his stomach, but the plane would refuse to turn any tighter. It would mush, skidding through the sky, its nose refusing to come around. It was a flaw only a technician or an engineer would care about, or a pilot who read their reports. He glances in his rearview mirror. They're there. All 6 of them, perfectly positioned, stacked up behind him like a line of dominoes, each pilot fixated on the target ahead. They are too close to each other, too confident. They anticipate he will continue his dive or break left or right. They're thinking in 2 dimensions. He is about to introduce a third. The altimeter reads 24,000 feet. The airspeed indicator needle touches 450 miles per hour. The numbers click into place in his mind. Now, he doesn't ease back on the yoke. He hauls it back. He slams it into his gut with every ounce of strength he possesses. The reaction is instantaneous and brutal. The P-38, a 9-ton beast of metal and fuel, responds as if it had hit a solid wall. The G-force is a physical blow, a giant invisible hand crushing Reynolds down into a seat. His vision tunnels, the blue sky at the periphery turning a dark, threatening gray. The blood drains from his head, pooling in his legs. He grunts, straining every muscle in his body to stay conscious, forcing air from his lungs. The entire airframe screams in protest. Not a whistle, but a deep, guttural groan of stressed aluminum. Rivets strain, wings flex, the twin booms shudder violently. For any other pilot, this is the moment of pure, instinctual terror. For Reynolds, it is the peak of a carefully plotted curve. He has initiated a maneuver that shouldn't be possible. A violent, upward climbing roll that is less an aerobatic display and more a brute force violation of the laws of conventional flight. He is not trying to outturn them. He is forcing them to follow him over a cliff they cannot see.
From Klaus Richter's cockpit, the American P-38's maneuver is an act of sheer insanity. One moment it is fleeing, a predictable target in his gun sight. The next, it rears up like a cobra, its twin booms seeming to stand still for a heartbeat before clawing its way vertically up into the sky. It is a move of suicidal desperation. Or so it seems. Richter, acting on pure, ingrained reflex, pulls his own stick back to follow. He must stay on the target. He must not let him escape. The G-force slams into him as well, but his Bf-109 responds differently. The plane shudders, protesting the violent command. The controls feel sluggish, heavy, as if moving through wet concrete. He is at the edge of the 109's performance envelope, the exact edge that Arthur Reynolds had read about in a manual thousands of miles away. The nose of his fighter refuses to track the climbing P-38. It wants to keep going straight, to skid through the turn. He is losing him. Pull up, he screams into his radio, a command born of frustration. But his wingman, Lieutenant Hess, doesn't need the command. He is already following his leader, his eyes glued not to the sky ahead, but to Richter's plane. This is the essence of German wingman doctrine: protect your leader at all costs. He sees Richter pull up, so he pulls up, tightening his turn to stay in formation. He is flying on faith, not on sight. He doesn't see the P-38. He doesn't see Richter's 109 starting to buffet, on the verge of a high-speed stall. Behind Hess, the third and fourth pilots in the formation do the same. They are a tightly coiled spring of disciplined aggression, and Reynolds has just released the trigger. They are so focused, so committed to the chase, that their situational awareness has collapsed to the few square feet of sky directly in front of them. They are no longer 6 individual pilots. They are one single entity, and its brain is 2 miles ahead and disappearing into the sun. The first moment of catastrophe is almost silent, lost in the roar of engines. Lieutenant Hess, pulling harder on his stick to maneuver a maneuver his plane cannot make, feels a sudden, catastrophic jolt. The world outside his canopy becomes a meaningless blur of metal and sky. Richter's number 3 pilot, fixated on the target beyond, has flown directly into Hess's tail. The propeller of the third Messerschmitt acts like a buzzsaw, chewing through the rudder and elevator of the second plane. Metal screams as it shears, control cables snap. Hess's 109 is suddenly no longer an airplane, but a 9,000-pound stone. It snaps into an uncontrollable spin, tumbling downwards. The pilot who hit him is in no better shape. His propeller is mangled, his engine seizing in a gut-wrenching shriek of tortured machinery. Black oil vomits across his windscreen, blinding him completely. He is now a passenger in a falling, powerless glider. The chaos cascades backwards through the formation. The fourth pilot, seeing the collision ahead, brakes violently to avoid the debris. His sudden panic jink puts him directly in the path of the fifth, who is still climbing, trying to understand what is happening. There is a second impact, a sickening crunch of wing against fuselage. A ball of orange flame erupts in the cold, thin air, blossoming for a moment like a malevolent flower, before collapsing into a plume of greasy black smoke. As Reynolds rolls his P-38 at the apex of his climb, his body screaming from the G-load, he looks down. Where 6 hunters had been moments before, there is only pandemonium. 2 parachutes, tiny white blossoms against the earth far below. One plane spinning wildly, trailing smoke. Another on fire, a funeral pyre falling from the heavens. The 2 remaining German fighters, including Richter, have broken off in opposite directions, their perfect, lethal formation utterly shattered. They are scattered, panicked, their cohesive strength broken not by a single cannon shell from his guns, but by a flawlessly executed physics problem. The wolves had been so intent on the chase that they had devoured each other. The trap he was meant to fall into had snapped shut on them instead. The sky that had been a cage was now his to command.
Silence descends in the cockpit of the California Comet. The only sounds are the steady thrum of the Allison engines and the frantic pounding of Arthur Reynolds' own heart. The violent strain of the maneuver is over, leaving an ache deep in his bones. He eases the throttles back, letting the P-38 settle into a wide, lazy circle high above the scene of destruction. He is now the hawk, and the scattered remnants of the wolf pack are far below. The 2 surviving Bf-109s are in full retreat. One, trailing a thin gray line of smoke, is limping eastward, its pilot likely fighting for control. The other, Richter's, makes a wide, sweeping turn, the pilot craning his neck to look back at the American fighter that has single-handedly dismantled his entire flight. You can almost feel the disbelief, the fury, and the dawning, terrifying respect radiating from that distant cockpit. They expect the final blow. They expect the P-38 to dive on them, its nose sparkling with the fire of its 4 50-caliber machine guns and its 20mm cannon. It is what they would do. It is the warrior's code. Press the advantage. Annihilate the enemy. But Reynolds does not dive. He doesn't fire a single shot. His finger never even tightens on the trigger. The objective was survival. The problem was to solve for X, where X was him flying home alive. The equation had been balanced. The unnecessary variables, the fleeing, defeated fighters, were now irrelevant. To expend ammunition on them would be illogical, an act of passion, not of calculation. He simply watches them go, 2 small scars against the horizon, until they are gone. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 90 seconds. He levels his wings and takes a slow, deliberate inventory. Fuel gauges, adequate. Engine temperatures, stable. Controls, responsive. He feels a slight tremor in his hands, the last vestiges of adrenaline working its way out of his system. He looks down again at the 2 pillars of smoke that mark the graves of 2 enemy aircraft, their pyres slowly dissipating in the high-altitude winds. He feels no triumph, no elation, only a quiet, profound sense of vindication. Corrigan's laughing face flashes in his mind. You can't fly a plane with a calculator, Art. He was wrong. You can't fly one without it. You can't fight in 3 dimensions without understanding the geometry of force and motion. Instinct is a tool for survival, but it is blunt. It tells you to run from the fire.
Knowledge tells you how to use the fire against your enemy. Guts can get you into a fight, but only brains, cold and calculating, can get you out of one like this. As he bangs his P-38 west, toward the distant, hazy shores of England, the sun begins to dip lower, painting the cloud tops in hues of orange and gold. The sky is empty again, just as it was an hour ago, but it is a different kind of emptiness now. It is not the emptiness of isolation, but of dominion. He has imposed his will upon this space, not with brute force, but with intellect. Back at the base, the debriefing will be interesting. How do you explain causing 2 mid-air collisions without firing a shot? How do you describe a victory won with a slide rule in a textbook? They won't understand the numbers, the careful plotting of energy states and G-low tolerances. They will only see the result. The bookworm, the quiet man who filled notebooks with equations, flew into a pack of 6 wolves and came home alone, without a single bullet hole in his aircraft. The laughter will stop. The nickname professor will no longer be a term of mockery. It will be a title, spoken with a new and unfamiliar tone. It will be spoken with awe. Lieutenant Arthur Reynolds flies on, the setting sun glinting off his canopy. He has proven that the deadliest weapon in the sky is not the machine gun, nor the cannon. It is the 3.5 pounds of gray matter nestled behind the pilot's eyes. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't a miracle. It was simply a matter of knowing the math.